Hello everyone, this is David Cerns with Haley Marketing and welcome to today's Lunch with Haley event. I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's webinar. We're tackling one of my personal favorite topics and actually a discussion that came up in detail this morning in a meeting with our sales team, and that is direct marketing and how direct marketing can really improve the effectiveness of selling staffing services. I'll get into the story later of what happened this morning, but it was really relevant about an individual in a company that to say they were not a believer in direct marketing was putting it mildly, but I'll try to tie that back in later and as we show some of the reasons that direct marketing just might make sense for your company. Now, as is usual for Lunch with Haley, we have a lot of ground to cover. So today, let's take a quick look at our game plan. So we're going to take a look at some of the challenges in selling staffing services today. We're going to take a look at the idea, the concept theory behind direct marketing, what it is, how it works, why it works. A few examples of some proof that this stuff actually makes an impact. And then we are going to talk about how you can go about designing a kick-ass direct marketing campaign. As is usual with Lunch with Haley, if you have questions along the way, please use the GoToWebinar question box to submit them. I will do my best to address them as we go through, and anything I don't get to, we'll save till the end and talk about them then. So let's start with the challenge. All right. It is no secret that the staffing industry is pretty competitive. The American Staffing Association, I believe, estimates that there are 17,000 staffing companies in just the United States. Now, if you assume every one of those staffing companies has an average of around 2 salespeople, that's about 35,000 people on the streets selling staffing. And the average salesperson makes, on the low end, 50 calls to 125 sales calls per week. So if we do a little math, what we come up with is 1.5 to 5 million staffing sales calls are made every single week. Think about that from your client's perspective. Well more than 1 million, 2 million, 3 million calls to HR professionals, to hiring managers, to general managers, to frontline supervisors from staffing companies trying to win business and promise a better way to get job orders filled. You know, it's sort of a wonder that we can ever get through to anybody with that kind of call volume. The HR department doesn't want us to call. They don't want to be interrupted. Some of you on previous Lunch with Haley events have probably heard me tell the story about a roundtable of HR professionals that was held. And this roundtable, they were asked, what is the worst part about being in human resources? And unfortunately, the short answer was the number of cold call interruptions we get, and not just any cold calls, but cold calls from staffing vendors. So a lot of people have said, you know what, I'm going to try a different technique. I'm going to email people. Well, HR doesn't really want us to email people. We're going to talk about those numbers in just a minute. And nobody wants you to do an unsolicited drop by. There is nobody sitting around with extra time in their hands hoping that you will show up so they can have an unplanned meeting. Now, I know sometimes that can work, and drop bys can be a great way to open a door to a future conversation, but from the HR manager, from the buyer's perspective, what they're really saying is, please don't interrupt my day. And let's not forget about our department managers, the executives, and the supervisors. They tend not to care at all about staffing services. It's not how they spend their day, of course, until they need to hire. And then they have that 11th hour request, and then you're their best friend because maybe you can help them fill something for tomorrow morning. But generally speaking, most people who don't live in the world of staffing or human resources really don't pay that much attention to what our industry does for a living until there's a need that's going unmet. I know most good sales professionals will swear by the value of cold calling, and there's nothing wrong with picking up the phone. But if you think about it, cold calling is a kind of antagonistic way to start a relationship. Hey, let me just interrupt your day and try to tell you why I'm a wonderful organization that you should want to deal with when I really don't know that much about you yet. We don't want to interrupt people's days in an antagonistic way. We want to interrupt people's days, if we have to interrupt them, in a very positive way. And we're going to talk about how direct marketing can set the stage for that first communication to be more positive. But I mentioned email. All right, so let's do some more math. With email, an average manager gets around 88 emails per day. That average manager spends about 15 seconds per email. So even if you can get the email to the right person, how in the world are you going to get them to read it and to take action? It's so hard to differentiate an email. If somebody doesn't know you, so they don't know the from name, it's not going to stand out. You can be very clever, creative, even misleading with subject lines to get them to open it, but it's hard to get people to read email. Now, it doesn't mean that email is not an extremely viable selling tool. In fact, it's still the highest ROI form of marketing. However, email is a lousy door opener. It's a lousy first contact. And we want to do things that will make the emails you send to become even more effective. And so, of course, how about social media? LinkedIn, Twitter, Google, if anybody's still on Google+, Instagram, Snapchat. You've got all these tools you can be using on social to help you open the doors with prospects. And it's no secret that we at Haley Marketing are huge proponents of the value of social media because the world is social. The world wants to learn about your products and services, about the jobs you have to offer and the talent you place before they agree to a meeting. And they're going to use social media to check you out. Social media is just awesome for brand building. It's awesome for driving traffic to your website. It's really good for recruiting. And it can even be used to target specific prospects from a sales perspective. But if you're going to do social well, it's really time consuming. And there's a lot of effort to reach people who may not be your ideal decision makers, the ideal prospects. So social as a tool to go after your ideal client may not be as powerful as other channels of communication. So the purpose of all this is to get you thinking, let's stop the insanity. The tools we're relying the most heavily on in the staffing industry, the phone, email, and social, are not necessarily the best tools to first use when you're selling staffing services. We want to really respect the people we're selling to. We want to treat them the way they want to be treated so that they have a favorable impression of our organization when we go into that first actual communication, whether it's on the phone or face-to-face. We want to really up our sales game so that we're doing more to boost the effectiveness of the sales efforts and not just saying, hey, let's up the cold call volumes and let's just make more blind calls with a hit rate of less than 5%. Let's have our salespeople do what they do best, spend time talking to prospects by giving them a better process. And that's what direct marketing is going to be all about. So how do we do this? Well, that's what today's webinar is all about. It's integrated direct marketing. It's the right marketing before you call that can make all the difference. So we want to do certain things in order to make people know who we are, understand why we're contacting them, be positively predisposed to the salesperson in our organization, and in an ideal world, want to talk to you, maybe even proactively reach out to you before you even reach out to them. So how does integrated direct marketing work? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take multiple channels of communication. If I identify a company that I want to sell to, I don't know how that prospect is going to respond. Maybe they'll respond to my call. Maybe they'll respond to an email I send. Maybe they'll respond to something I send in the mail or a direct message through social media. Maybe they'll respond because I target them with pay-per-click advertising. I don't know which channel is going to work, so I want to use multiple channels when I go direct after my ideal prospects. So whatever the prospect will react to, I'm in that channel. I want to add to that multiple ways to follow up. Absolutely, your number one follow-up tool is going to be the telephone. Number two, close number two, is going to be email. And number three is probably going to be social messaging, connecting on LinkedIn, following people, and then getting hopefully them to follow you back on Twitter and direct messaging. But I can use social messaging, email, and the phone as multiple ways to try to follow up on the initial points of contact. And I'm going to add to that, giving people multiple ways to take action. So when you're marketing to a prospect, some of those people, they want to get on the phone. They want to talk to you. But a lot of people these days don't. They want to go figure out what you're all about before they ever agree to talk to you because they're busy and they don't want to be interrupted with a call. And everyone's sort of internally afraid of being sold to, or at least they don't like it if they're not afraid of it. They don't want to have those kinds of sales meetings, what they perceive to be sales pitches. So we want to be able to have ways that people can respond to you, whether it's via email to get back in touch, whether they can call you, whether they can go to landing pages, whether it's this page you already have on your website or a page you've set up specifically to go to along with a direct marketing campaign. They can go to that page to take action. I don't have on this list, but appropriately, if in some cases, you might even use text messaging as a way to either follow up or a way to take action. We're seeing more and more websites that are integrating chat features, some live action, some completely automated. In fact, our last product demo was about chatbots. And the ability to have chat gives your prospect another way to take action that's not quite as intrusive in their mind as having a salesperson come out and visit and having to schedule a meeting. And in fact, when you integrate these multiple channels of communication with multiple approaches to follow up and multiple ways to take action, you easily will double the effectiveness of your sales activities, and you can get as much as 10 times the response as you would to traditional pick up the phone, knock on the door, and cold call. So that's a pretty bold statement. We can 10x our sales effectiveness just by adding some marketing around our process. Well, let's take a look at a few specific examples of some campaigns we've designed and what they generated for our clients. So this is a campaign we did several years ago for a company, and it was a multi-step approach designed to open doors with prospective clients, get their attention, educate the prospect a little bit about what this company could do for them, position the prospect, integrate follow-up calls with it, and then have some additional mailings after the initial campaign to reinforce the message from the first mailers and from the follow-up call and help keep this salesperson, this company, top of mind through a repeated series of calls. Well, it costs about $10,000 to produce and mail these materials. And this particular campaign generated over $500,000 in sales in the first year. And here's another campaign. This campaign was about a $16,000 investment. Again, multiple formats of direct mail. There's in the upper right corner, you see it's called a cross mailer. It looks like a big kind of plus sign that all folds up to an 8-inch square. And then when it arrives in the mail, it unfolds to this big 2-foot by 2-foot piece. But you can see that it's not covered in text, but it addresses some problems, problem 1, problem 2, problem 3 that staffing companies typically have. That was married to a really nice follow-up booklet, which I think had 24 pages of ideas on how to solve business problems using staffing services. And that was followed up by a positioning piece that talked specifically about what this company could do for their clients. And then the salesperson would call, and after that, there was a series of postcards, again, to reinforce messages and positioning. Well, the $16,000 investment turned into almost $1 million in sales in the first year of implementation. Now, I've showed you a couple of older examples. I'm going to show you now 2 more recent examples. This particular piece that you see was part of a multi-touch campaign which integrated different forms of touches. The one you saw, the 2 prior examples were all direct mail and phone with an email touch. This one actually, the campaign began with a drop-off, sending out a really cool gift basket that was hand-delivered to target prospects. It was then followed up with a sales letter and a booklet, and the title of the booklet, as you can see, was 3 Below Zero. And what the booklet was about was the fact that in 2015, this is campaign that this organization used in 2016. In 2015, the net promoter score for the staffing industry on the client side, according to the folks at Innovero, was -3 or 3 below 0, meaning that clients were more dissatisfied with staffing companies than satisfied. Well, this particular organization had an off-the-charts positive net promoter score. They were at the top of the staffing industry, and we used the difference between 3 below 0 and their score as the foundation for this booklet, where we talked about how this particular organization had a very different approach to staffing, how it was very unlike what most of the staffing company did. And it wasn't just a sales pitch for this organization saying we're wonderful. It was more of an outline, like a playbook that says, here's what most staffing companies do, here's why it's wrong, and here's how we're different. And then, as you can see, the booklet itself concluded with the world's most painless call to action, allowing people to just go to a web page to find more information. Sure, you could pick up the phone and call if you wanted to talk and learn about this company, but you could just go to a web page to get more information. What I loved about this campaign was that it created differentiation on one of the aspects that's the most difficult to differentiate on, and that's customer service. Because every staffing company says they're better on service. Well, this company had great metrics to say we're really different. And using this approach where they integrated a drop-off, mailers, follow-up calls, a mixture of educational content and positioning content, they were able to open doors with a ton of new clients. The one I loved the most was within the first 3 weeks after the campaign went into place, they followed up with an organization that they had unsuccessfully been trying to cold call on for 2 years. They had an appointment, they had a meeting, that became a key client. This process wasn't cheap per client, but they used it to go after strategic accounts, to go after the A clients they wanted to do business with. And what they've found is by having a process to go after strategic accounts, those counts are 5 to 8 times larger than accounts that come to them through other means. And so this process gives their salespeople the ability to have more face-to-face conversations with those strategic accounts. And the last one in the samples, this is another campaign from a company down in the Mid-Atlantic area. And what I love about this campaign is this company has a really differentiated model for service. And I can't get into that, disclose what they do, but I can certainly show in the campaign, they focused on sort of a movie theme and the idea of casting your next star, finding that superstar to work for you. And they did a combination of really great attention-grabbing mailers. So the first thing was a big poster sent in a tube to get people's attention. And it was kind of like a movie poster, more as a teaser. Didn't sell a lot. It was just there to get your attention. But then the second piece was more of the education, how to hire superstar talent. And the final piece was more of a positioning piece. 3 steps: attention grabber, education, positioning, and a follow-up call. This campaign, which in the first 4 months of its implementation from this organization, they didn't have a huge list they were going after, but they were able to set 88 client appointments, 20 with new customers. 8 of those 20 new customers became clients, and they saw more than an 11% increase in their gross margin year over year by putting direct marketing around their sales process. They also, in the very short term, closed 2 direct hire placements. The fees from those 2 placements alone more than paid for all of their costs for the direct mail campaign design and production. But dollars and cents aren't the only ways to measure the value of direct marketing. So they can be measured in terms of, does it help us get more appointments? And one organization we worked with implemented a process with a great offer, and simply adding a great offer into their direct marketing resulted in 44.7% of their outbound calls resulting in appointments, which blew away their traditional cold calling. Another company we worked with saw their cold call to appointment ratio increase by 100%, effectively doubling the face time that their sales reps had with prospects just by putting direct marketing around how people sold. Another firm saw their sales cycle reduced from an average of several months to an average of weeks by sending a very compelling message. We're going to talk a little bit about a core story, but a core story that showed people it pays to look at staffing differently than you think about looking at it today. And that message not only got people to want to talk to this staffing company, but it got them to want to evaluate and bring in a new vendor in 1/3 the time that it normally took them to sell. And one of the biggest reasons for doing direct marketing in advance of selling is to position yourself. Lots of our clients use direct marketing to position themselves as an expert. Could be an expert in staffing. It could be an expert in HR issues. We did a case study this morning. Now it was a fictitious one, but it was based on a real life client from several years ago, where they position themselves as an expert in lean manufacturing, and they use that as their entree to get in front of clients and prospects. They would market the fact that they had very deep manufacturing, very deep Six Sigma expertise to be able to go out and show clients how to improve efficiency in their organization. And so when direct marketing positions you as an expert in something, it doesn't have to be staffing, but something that matters to the client, now when you pick up the phone, when you send that email, the prospect has some knowledge of who you are, some knowledge of the value you can deliver, hopefully a pretty strong position of who you are as an organization or as an individual salesperson, and they want to talk to you because you can offer something of value to them, and you're not going to be just another staffing company promising me better candidates and better service. Okay, so let's talk about how would you build something like this for your company. So if you want to build a kick-ass direct marketing campaign, what are the elements? Well, in any direct marketing, you go to pick up a book off the bookshelf and it talks about direct marketing, and they're going to say there's 3 elements to it. The 3 essential elements are the list, the offer, and the creative. The list is, who do we target? Now, you can have the world's greatest creative, beautiful pieces, brilliantly written copy, but if you have the wrong people you're targeting, it's not going to be effective. Perfect example of this is, I remember talking to the owner of a relatively young, small staffing company. The owner was absolutely convinced, we just need to land one major account and we'll be all set. So I want to target the headquarters of the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies in my market. Now that'd be a great list. Anybody would want to win those clients for their staffing business. The problem was, this staffing company was so small, they couldn't be a viable vendor to this company. They didn't have any unique specialty, any unique differentiation that would make that giant corporation want to work with them. So even though the list on the surface seemed like the right prospect because they used tons of staffing, it was the dead wrong prospect for their marketing because it wasn't really who their ideal client was. And when you think about your list, you have to think about who is really our ideal client. What size company? What industry should we target? Where are they? Are they only in our local hometown? Are they everywhere we have an office? Are they in other cities where our clients have offices? Or maybe certain cities where we're really good at recruiting for disciplines and we're going to target those locations? Is the list, should it be a strategic buyer, a department head, a senior executive, a general manager, a C-level executive? Or more of a tactical buyer, someone who's the order placer, HR, purchasing, office managers? Who is the right person to target in that ideal organization? And then also on the list, what's our relationship? Are we going to direct market to people who are completely cold, they've never heard of us before? Are we going to direct market to people we've tried to sell to but haven't been successful with? Are we going to direct market to existing clients? It can be very valuable to go after existing clients, even those with whom you have a great relationship. Maybe when you're trying to cross-sell, introduce them to new services or introduce them to new ways to solve problems that might allow you to sell a higher margin solution. So the list, having the right people based on who your company is best at selling to and what kind of services you're selling and how you want to focus, that list is essential. And it's going to be about 40% of the response you get is determined by the list. The second is the offer. Why would someone respond to you? And when you talk to people about offers, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, I have to give a discount. Well, we actually had in our Be a Consultant training class this morning, we had a discussion about the fact that an offer for a discount on staffing services is usually a terrible offer. The reason being is that, number one, let's say you gave somebody 8 hours of free temporary service and you place light industrial workers. So maybe that's a $20 an hour bill rate, maybe a $15 an hour bill rate times 8 hours. You're giving somebody $120 to $160 worth of value. But in order to take you up on that offer, the person you're selling to probably still needs to spec the job they need. They need to train you about what their organization looks for in a staffing partner. They need to screen the candidates you provide. They probably are going to order somebody for more than one day. So even though you're giving them 8 hours free, they still got a bill they're going to have to pay. So by and large, even with the day off, it's an expensive offer for them to take you up on. So they're not going to do it. And the other thing is the person you're selling to, that individual probably gets little to no benefit of a discount. It goes to their employer. So if you want to create a great offer, you have to think about who am I selling to and what would be valuable to that person. Can I offer them information that they would really find valuable in their job? Can I offer them some sort of free consulting? Think about how those people spend their days and the problems they have, not just staffing problems, all the problems they have. And what can I offer, what can I deliver that would be interesting and of value? I know I receive solicitations all the time saying, we'll give you a $50 Visa gift card just for listening to our pitch. Okay, that's for me personally. That's not a terrible offer because at least I would get the benefit. Now, a lot of organizations will absolutely stop you. They prohibit those kinds of offers. But you want to think about and brainstorm all the different ways you might make offers that your list would find valuable. And if you need some help brainstorming ideas for offers, if you've never had a chance to download the Marketing Best Practices Guide from the Haley Marketing website, I encourage you to go to haleymarketing.com, go to the freebies page. You'll see the ebooks listed, and one of them, our ebooks, is the Marketing Best Practices Guide. So again, it's haleymarketing.com, go to freebies, go to ebooks, and that Marketing Best Practices Guide, there's a list of 70, I believe, ideas for staffing offers. We actually based it on a book I read years ago on direct marketing offers and all kinds of crazy things you could do in direct marketing. And then we made the attempt to apply them all to the staffing industry. I'll forewarn you, some of them don't translate really well, but we had a lot of fun coming up with ways to be creative and thinking about offers. And the list in our best practices guide will absolutely stimulate your thinking. You also, with the offer, want to think about how people can respond. So do they have to call you to respond? That will probably get the lowest level of response. Do they have to email you? That'll get a little bit more. Can they just visit a web page and download something? And if they can download something, is it gated content, meaning I have to give you my contact information to download it? So the greatest response happens when I can go to a web page and it's ungated content. Now, if I can track emails and I know who clicked on it and I know who went to that landing page, I may be happy making all the content ungated because I don't really need to ask people for their email address or their name. I already know what they clicked on. I can track all that in my email marketing. But let's say I'm using social media and I'm driving people to a web page, or direct mail and I'm driving people to a web page, and I really want to know who's coming, then I probably would want my content to be gated, but it has to have enough value so somebody would take the time to fill in the blanks to get the information. So if you're offering information that's nice to know but not critical, they're not going to fill it out. It's got to be something that your audience would find extremely valuable. Typically, buyers of staffing services love salary guides and local market pay information. They'd really love to know pay and bills so they can figure out your markups, but I'm not sure you want to tell them that. But they do want to know what other companies are paying for contractors. They want to know what it takes to hire a top performing contractor. And that actually right now might be a benefit to you to give them that information, showing them that the range for this type of IT professional is between X and Y dollars. So therefore, the companies that are having an easier time finding talent are the companies at the Y end of the spectrum because the X's aren't paying enough. The more you can share that information, the more it helps you sell, but also it becomes a great offer. But it doesn't have to just be salary information. Again, going to that list of problems, think about everything you know about hiring, where to recruit, how to recruit, managing people, performance management, how to get the best results, performance reviews, and all the issues that you understand around employee retention. Help them address all of their people issues by giving them different kinds of content that they can get, or to offer to come in and do a free consultation. In that example I mentioned earlier of the executive who knew a lot about lean manufacturing, the owner of the company, who was that expert, would offer to come into a plant, and he would promise people, if you take me on a tour of your plant, I will absolutely give you a list of ways to improve efficiency by the time I walk out the door. Free of charge. I was a consultant in this world. I can absolutely spot inefficiencies with nothing more than a walkthrough because of my experience, and I'll do that for you if we can schedule some time together. Great offer. No cost to respond, no cost to get the valuable information. Highly important and hard for the customer to get on their own. So that's an example of a perfect offer. And then lastly, we think about the creative. This is the fun part. This is how we package everything. And a lot of times we want to start here because this is the fun part. But this is how we package the message. Are we going to send it via email, mail, drop off? Are we going to send it with social graphics and promote it on social media? What style of design? Do we want something bold and in your face? Do we want something classy and clean? Do we want something very minimalistic? Do we want something that's fun and maybe a little more busy? You want to design something that fits your company's brand, but more importantly, fits the message of the offer and is appropriate for the audience. Then you want to think about, is the creative going to be a single step? I'm going to try to do everything, get your attention all at once, follow it up to try to get an appointment, or will I break it down the way a college professor breaks down the class curriculum into a series of digestible steps or classes or bites, break down my curriculum into multiple steps so that I have multiple touch points, but each one has a very simple message. The best campaigns use multiple touch points and multiple forms of communication in their creative. But before you even get to thinking about the creative, maybe even picking your list, deciding on your offer, you want to start with a goal in mind. What are you really trying to accomplish? Is the goal to drive inbound leads? So I'm trying to get people to go from my marketing to a landing page or to my website, and then if they're interested, they'll hold up their hand and my sales team can follow up. Or am I trying to improve sales response? My sales calls are going to be tightly integrated with this campaign. My goal is to get more appointments for the salespeople by making more people willing to answer the phone, or willing to respond to an email, or willing to respond to them via LinkedIn. Is the goal to position your firm? Am I trying to not so much worry about the response, but set the tone, demonstrate, here's what makes us different than the competition. Here's the position we occupy in our industry or in the local market. Maybe I'm just trying to focus on education. I'm trying to teach the prospect something the prospect did not know. Maybe the prospect is using staffing really reactively and only buying on price. And they think they're getting a great deal because they're buying on price. Well, maybe I want to educate them that low cost does not mean low cost. And that the best value in staffing comes from paying appropriately to get high-performing people. That when there's lower turnover and higher productivity, that's the lower cost of staffing. When there's fewer management headaches, when it's easier for HR, when it's easier for the hiring manager, that's a lower cost. So maybe I want to educate the prospect how to get a better value. Again, if you go back to your list of here's all the problems I know our audience has, you can share education to help that audience address those problems, and that education positions you as an expert, and that education will improve sales response because it makes people want to speak with you. But maybe I'm simply nurturing existing leads, people you've already talked to, and my goal is to stay top of mind. The end goal is ultimately to get to a sale. But the goal of the marketing is rarely to close a sale. You're not doing direct response marketing, with the exception of when you're skill marketing candidates. What you're doing is you're trying to make the sale that says, go to my website. I want that sale closed because you went from the marketing piece to the website. Or you want to close the sale that says, hey, let's make 15 minutes for an initial call. That's the sale I want to make. I want to make the sale that takes me to the next step in the overall sales process. And a nurturing campaign would look at where are people today and what do I need to do to get them to the next step? Are they analyzing the staffing decision? Are they evaluating vendors? Are they looking for ways to solve problems? In my nurturing campaign, I want to share information that helps the prospect, helps existing clients to address their common challenges and concerns when it comes to staffing and talent management, so that, again, they see me as an expert, I'm well positioned, and when that staffing need pops up, I'm the company that's top of mind. I mentioned earlier we're going to talk a little bit about core story, and ultimately any direct marketing is about storytelling. It's not just about here's a rational reason why we're better. I was in Chicago last week working with a client doing some brainstorming on positioning, and almost everything we initially threw out was very left-brained, logical. Here's our advantages. Now, this particular company was going head-to-head with some big national companies that had more offices, more salespeople, more recruiters, a bigger talent database, bigger client network. They had a lot of competitive advantage, better technology. I mean, you name it, they sort of had competitive advantages. So their story wasn't going to be all left-brained logical. Here's why we're better. We had to look at the right brain and the emotional reasons why a prospect would want to talk to them. And without getting into the specifics of this particular company, they had some really great emotional bonding points. And we wanted to craft a story that was more emotional than pure logic. So we want to think about how do we create a story that's engaging. The story could be about how your organization approaches the world, your vision, because a vision story is great. If you look at Elon Musk and his vision of getting us all on clean energy and the way he's doing it through batteries and cars and solar roof panels and now mass transit through Hyperloop and tunneling under the United States. Just he is an amazing storyteller, but his organization becomes an amazing storyteller, and the people who talk about his organization become amazing storytellers because they have a core story about sustainability that is central to their business. They don't talk about selling cars. They don't talk about selling roof tiles. They talk about a core story of sustainability and saving our planet. That's pretty motivating to anybody who lives on our planet. So you want to think about a core story that's emotionally and logically motivating to your audience, something that engages them, and it's not just going to be about better talent. Maybe it's about service experience. Maybe it's about caring. Maybe it's about what you do for people, client or candidate side. But you want to think about that story that will bond your customers to you and make them want to talk to you. If you would like some help in creating a core story in the Lunch with Haley on-demand webinars, there's a whole hour webinar recorded that we did, I think, last summer on creating your core story. So you can go to lunchwithhaley.com, our other website. You can go to webinars on demand and just search for core story, and you'll find that webinar that will help you craft the right story you can use in your marketing. Now, marketing also has to be bold, and there's lots of different ways you can be bold. The mistake I see in the creative in our industry so often is we're afraid to be bold because we might offend someone. We don't want to have a single prospect say, I didn't like that, so we take the safe conservative route. Well, to me, the riskiest thing you can do is to play it safe. Safe doesn't stand out. Safe isn't memorable. Safe doesn't get a response. You got to do whatever it takes to capture attention. So I know some of you may have seen this on past Lunch with Haley's because it's one of my favorite examples of capturing attention. This is a 9-inch tall donkey that was mailed out in a black box that was 9 inches by 4 inches by 4 inches. The donkey was holding a card that says, because hiring is a pain in the ass. And it really talked about the card in very simple bullets, all the reasons hiring is hard. And this company's core story was about making hiring easier. So you don't always have to use a 9-inch donkey and curse words to get people's attention. You can also just think about packages. I was reading the blog of another marketing professional, and he had a blog post title that I loved, and it was called "The Email with a 100% Open Rate." I'm like, an email with a 100% open rate? That's like a unicorn. It doesn't exist. But as I read the blog post, he said, no, the email with a 100% open rate is when you take an email, you print it out, and you put it in a box, or you put it in a FedEx envelope. Because when a box shows up on your desk, when a FedEx envelope shows up, no one throws it out unopened. So when a package shows up, you want to know what's inside. The sample you see on screen right now is a company that was introducing their new technical staffing services, and they had to cross-sell to existing clients who thought of them for a different type of staffing. So even with existing clients who knew them, they needed to really get people's attention to say, hey, we've got something new. So we had this box, we had a little promotional item that had a magnetic desk item with the paper clips that looked like little people, and a booklet about how to generate more flexibility, which is what their positioning was all about, how to generate more flexibility in your business. And they knew with a package that no one was throwing it in the garbage unopened, especially when they can feel something heavy in there, which that paperweight was. But there are other ways to be bold. Be bold can be about the issues you talk about. If you look at the fact that businesses that try to be real lean, this is a company that sent out a booklet called The Cost of Understaffing. Businesses that try to be real lean sometimes try to be too lean. They cut too far, and it negatively impacts productivity and profitability. And then rather than trying to save money by cutting too far, this company could show them, these businesses, how to staff more strategically to optimize their workforce, optimize their spend, to actually increase productivity without increasing cost. And so they were bold by tackling a business issue that was very important to most of their clients who were in the manufacturing world, which is driving efficiency. When you're thinking about business issues, you really want to focus on pain points. As humans, we are mentally focused on problems more than solutions and benefits. So, my favorite example of that is turn on the news. A lot of news channels right now, in a desperate attempt in this crazy world to make us feel good, have been adding the 1-minute story about what's good in the world to complement the 21 minutes of the sky is falling that they use to get your attention. It's sort of like an accident on the highway. We can't help but look at problems. And the same is in your marketing. A strong attention grabber that addresses a big pain point in your audience doesn't have to be fancy. But the issue itself is the attention grabber, and you want to integrate those kinds of issues because that's what leads to somebody wanting to talk to you when they perceive you have an answer for how to address those issues. Issues are one of the best ways to lead to a follow-up discussion because it's not a sales pitch for staffing. It's a discussion about how to address the business problem. The other thing, and you have to be careful on how you use this, is when you're focusing on problems, look at people's fears. People are afraid of making a mistake. People are afraid of wasting money. People are afraid of looking bad to their peers. It's very emotional. It's that right brain stuff. Fear is an incredibly effective motivator, an incredibly effective way to sell. Now, I don't like scaring people. Hey, if you don't do this, it's the end of the world, so you must buy from us. That kind of sales pitch is really negative. However, if you can show people ways they might be making a mistake, like you can see on screen here. Do you have $40 hour professionals doing $10 per hour work? Are you spending too much on labor and benefits? Can temps provide more than clerical support? We're making people question how they're doing their business, creating the fear that maybe I'm not doing things right. Maybe I could look for a different solution. And when we come to talking about why work with a staffing company with this campaign, we're not selling with fear, we're selling with solutions, but we're using the fear as the attention grabber, saying you could be doing something better or differently. And the next way to be bold is just through repetition and having a consistent message that you do mailing or drop off or email after contact after contact after contact is a great way to break through the clutter. So the last example you saw was one campaign. Here's another example. Multiple touches. You'll notice that none of these shout, this is from a staffing company. None of the images look like staffing. They all kind of look like extreme sports, because this campaign was sort of about that staffing your business is like an extreme sport. There's a lot of risk. It's hard to learn to do it well, but when you do it well, it's a beautiful thing. And it can be incredibly efficient. And just like all the athletes you see, they're incredibly efficient about how they pursue their sports. And a staffing organization can help a client be incredibly efficient about how they run their business with the right staffing strategy. But by repeating a similar look and feel through multiple steps of communication, somebody may miss the first or the second, or they may see the first and miss the third. Having those multiple touch points dramatically increases the probability that they notice you at some point. And then when you integrate it with emails and social messaging and phone calls, now that repetition of contact, that repetition of touch points and multiple channels of contact maximizes the probability of getting the appointment, which will lead to the sale. In terms of the offers, our goal is to make them as irresistible as we can be. So what defines an irresistible offer? Well, the best offer would be no cost, high value, no risk, super easy to respond. So on screen, you see an example. Get our free workforce strategies guide. Okay, free, no cost. High value, it's a workforce strategies guide. It's not a guide to how to use staffing. It's a guide that will show you 24 ways to reduce payroll, limit benefits expense, get on-demand access to people with the skills a business needs to get more work done. That's valuable. It doesn't say, here's why staffing works. It says, here's how to manage your workforce better. There's no risk. You can go to a web page, download it on your own. You can call if you don't want to go to the web page, that's fine. You can email them, and it's easy to respond because we have provided multiple ways to get the guide on the web, via phone, via email. So we're trying to incorporate everything we can to make the offers as low cost as possible, as high value as possible, and easy and as low risk as possible to respond. And remember, just because something's free doesn't mean it's low risk. If the prospect has to invest their time or their reputation to take you up on the offer, that's a high risk offer. So how can you reduce that? By making it easier to go through the process to try out your services or schedule a meeting. I mentioned our marketing guide before, so here's the complete URL. But the easiest way is just go to haleymarketing.com, go to freebies, and look for that marketing best practices guide. The whole guide is 49 pages long, but the last section is that guide to irresistible offers. So please take advantage of it, play with it. Again, some of them are just wickedly silly. Some of them are really good, but take a look at them and evaluate what do we want to try and experiment with different ones to see what resonates with your ideal audience. The next thing is to think about how do we match the message to the audience, because different types of staffing buyers have different interests. So there are strategic decision makers, higher level individuals. They're the ones who would make the decision, do we use temporary staffing? Do we work with an executive recruiting firm? Yes or no? They focus on bigger picture issues. They're interested in cost savings as it impacts the total bottom line. They're interested in how to drive productivity, and they're interested in ROI. What can I do that will increase our revenues while decreasing our costs? With this audience, you don't want to be all hypey. You want to be direct. I want to talk about what we can do for this audience, problems we can solve, and I want to do it in their language. If possible, I want to offer relevant case studies so they can see you have experience solving the problems they have, and get to the point. Just don't be wordy. If you can say it in 5 sentences instead of 5 paragraphs, do it. If you can say it in 3 sentences instead of 5, do it. Shorter is better, especially in today's attention-starved world where we're all trying to race through those 88 emails, if you're lucky, a day, more like 88 an hour now. But the other side are our tactical buyers. These are our order placers. They usually don't have the authority to choose, are we going to be working with a staffing or recruiting firm, but often they can choose which firm are we working with. They're more likely people who want to think about, how do I make my job a little easier? How do I eliminate my headaches? How do I get out of here by 5 o'clock today? You want to focus on their personal pain points. You want to help them look good. You want to provide specific tactical ideas, so not grand strategies, but you want to focus on things they could implement tomorrow. Be sincere. Try to help people. Don't always be trying to sell. Position yourself as an ally, as a strategic partner, not as a trusted advisor, but not as a salesperson. Where you can, use peer testimonials, people who are like the audience you're selling to. And lastly, don't look like you're selling staffing, because they know what a staffing sales pitch sounds like. It's sort of like when you walk into a retail store and someone makes the mistake of saying, "Can I help you?" And no matter what question they ask, your first mental response is, "No, thank you, just looking." Well, our clients and prospects have been sold to by so many staffing companies. When they hear you're selling staffing, they get that "no thanks, just looking" response. And we have to think about how to take that away by addressing different types of issues, those tactical issues that matter, those pain points that matter to these audiences. You also want to integrate your media. I talked many times already about having mail, email, social messaging, telephone. You want to use all of those in an integrated campaign. Think about pay-per-click advertising. I can use Google AdWords, where I upload an email list and just target that email list. I can do that. Target people on LinkedIn. I can target people on Facebook. I can target people on Twitter. But I want to do paid advertising so that when people go online, they're seeing the same message as I sent to them in the mail and with email. I can use remarketing. So if somebody visits my landing page, well, now my landing page continues to follow them around. And then I can use marketing automation to make it a process. So if somebody comes to engage with a piece of content, I don't have to get on the phone right away to sell to them. In fact, if they just came for education, maybe they don't want a sales call right away. They're not really sales ready. But I can have marketing automation that has a series of follow-ups to nurture relationships, advance the person to the next step and the next step until they really are ready to talk to your sales team. And speaking of sales, we want to get the entire sales team involved. Get their input up front about the problems clients are having and prospects are having. Not just staffing problems, all their problems. We want to help them set sales goals and set goals for the campaign by looking at what are the business goals for the year, what are the number of clients we need, what are the number of new prospect sales calls you're willing to make with this campaign each and every week. I want to diagram the process, which you'll see in just a second. Where possible, outline or script the calls so that they know what to do, how to handle the follow-up. Train them, do role plays so that once they get on the phone with a real prospect, this is a piece of cake. They've already seen what to do. You also want to track the results of everybody you're marketing to. What happened? Did we get them on the phone? Did we get an appointment? Did they buy? And then use the feedback the sales team gives you to adjust the campaign so it's not the marketing department's, it's not the CEO's campaign, it's the sales team's campaign that's built to help the sales team be more successful. In terms of a repeatable process, this is just a diagram that sort of shows how it could work, where you have a series of steps. You sort of show the goals for those steps. So in this particular case, there's an awareness, an education, a positioning that are shown as 3 different mail pieces. Then there's going to be a call to try to get an appointment. But if we don't get an appointment, we'll put them into a nurturing process of email and direct mail and ongoing sales follow-up. Even with clients, we're going to put them into the nurturing process, but we don't need a 3-step campaign. We just have a single-step intro letter to get the clients into the process. And the idea, not that this is the only process, is to map out what you expect the sales team to do, and like those white diamonds in the diagram, where people are expected to make calls and send emails and do their follow-up. So A, they do it. B, you can track it and make sure that it's happening with 100% of the prospects. What you should avoid in designing direct marketing campaigns: one-shot campaigns. I see this all the time. I did this one direct mail piece. Direct mail doesn't work. I quit. I did this one email. I didn't get a response. Therefore, email doesn't work. No, you want multi-step, multi-touch, multi-channel. But you don't want to try to do too many things at once, too many prospects, too many different types of communications all at the same time. If the list is too big, if the program is too complicated, sales team's going to get confused. They won't follow up on it. So we want to make it easy for people to understand in your organization. You want to avoid having no unique message. Now, it can be clear differentiation about your company or a clear core story that gets people a reason to want to talk to you, which ties to offering value. If there's no offer or an offer with really little value to the person you're marketing to, like the example of 8 hours free to somebody who gets no benefit from 8 hours free, they actually have to do more work, that's not going to get much response. You have to think about offers that have a lot of value to your audience. If you don't send the right copy to the right people, the right message to the audience, it's not going to get a response. It's going to fall on deaf ears. If there's too much copy, and I know there are some people in the marketing world who will wholeheartedly disagree with me because they love those super long emails, super long sales letters, pages and pages of content. Yes, I know those can work, but to the audience you're selling to in HR, they don't have the time for that. You have to get to the point, you have to demonstrate the value and be as concise as humanly possible. But you don't want to be too salesy. If you are just doing a staffing sales pitch, you are going to turn people off and not get the appointment, not get them a reason to want to talk to you. And as we talked about earlier, list. If we've got the wrong list, the list is too little. If we're doing a lot of email marketing, we're talking to somebody this morning and they said, yeah, the email list for one office was 84 people. Okay, an email list of 84 people is never going to work. If I only had 84 people in my prospect universe, I would be doing drop-offs and direct mail all the time because it's such a little list. And I have to be successful with them, so I want to make a big impact. But if I am doing email marketing, I'm going to want a list of hundreds or even thousands of people that I'm regularly touching base with because I have to have a sufficient list to make the marketing channel as effective as possible. And the biggest mistake we see time and time again is people will design a brilliant campaign, the right list, the right offer, the right creative, and they don't pick up the phone. They don't follow up. The biggest mistake we see is to not follow up. So to kind of wrap this all up, let me give you a game plan just to recap everything that goes into putting this all together. I will say we've had a few questions that have come in, so I know we're going to run a little over on Q&A. I will stay online as long as you like to answer questions, but let me first wrap it up with how to put together your direct marketing checklist. So in creating your direct marketing, first thing, think about your goals. What are we trying to accomplish? Go back to the slides earlier and figure out, are we exactly what you are trying to do? Is it inbound? Is it improve sales productivity? Is it education? Is it positioning? Is it some of all the above? What do we need to generate to be successful? How many new clients? How much revenue? Understand your goals. Define that target audience. Who is our ideal client? Why would they want to talk to us? Who in the organization is the ideal decision maker we want to talk to? Or who are multiple decision makers? And then for each audience, what do we want to tell them? Craft that compelling core story for each audience you're going to target and create an even more compelling offer that's relevant to the audience, whether it's the senior level strategic decision maker, the tactical buyer, whomever you're going after. Think about the right story and right offer for the audience. Once you've done that, get into your kick-ass campaign. Brainstorm, be creative. How can we find fun ways to tell the story? And that comes to the bold design. And I said here, don't cheap out or chicken out. If you don't spend enough to do it right, to get people's attention, it's not going to get the results. And the difference in cost between do it right and do it wrong is not that significant. It's a fraction of one new client. But I see a lot of companies say, well, I only have a budget of $1,500 to do this direct marketing campaign, whereas $2,500 might have made all the difference in the world, or $3,500. Do it right in order to get people's attention and to make them want to talk to you, and consider every part of the package, whether it's the outside mailbox or envelope, whether it's what's inside the package, whether it's what the email looks like, what you drop off. Consider every element. Does it make people want to open it? Does it make people want to read it? Does it make people want to call you? Do they see the offer? Seriously evaluate it, and also look at the copy. Make sure it's really good. A strong, active voice. You focus, meaning focused on the reader, not the staffing company. No BS. Don't skip the sales hype. Let's just get to the business issues we're dealing with as concisely as we can. Your focus in direct marketing is not to sell staffing, it's to sell the offer. Whether the offer is to get free information or is to have a meeting to talk about something, you're selling the next step. Use your headlines to get attention. Assume people will not read any of the body copy. They're going to skim it. So let the headlines allow people to skim. And as much as you can, personalize. This also came up in our brainstorming this morning where we said if we were going after a really small list in a city of truly strategic prospects, I would personalize my letters, my mail package for each individual company based on data I had researched on that company. If I'm going to a broad audience, you're not going to do that level of personalization. Set it up as a repeatable process, something that's really easy to follow, something that you know the sales team will do 100% follow-up with, and then train your team. Show them, why are we creating this campaign? How do we create the campaign, and how are you going to integrate it with your day-to-day sales activities? Show them scripts or outlines for what to do and say. Let them practice it before they do it with a live prospect, and show them when this will fit into their normal weekly agenda for sales calls and follow-ups and appointments. And then measure the response, get feedback from the salespeople, and correct and adjust the campaign to keep making it better and better and better. We've had clients design direct mail campaigns that they have used for more than a decade because they worked well. While they may have been expensive in year one to design, over 10 years, they were a fraction of 1% of the revenue they brought in. And if you think about your sales process and the percentage of a salesperson's hour who you're paying for every single hour that gets spent leaving voicemail messages, not making contacts, the value of direct marketing is off the charts. So with that said, we are going to open it up for questions. As I mentioned, a few have come in. I know we're just at 3 p.m., so for everybody who has to run away, thank you very much for joining us today. Before I get to the Q&A, if you are interested in seeing some examples of one of our variations of integrated direct marketing, we're doing a product demo next Tuesday, and it's about our door openers campaign. There was actually a couple of examples snuck into this presentation, but we'll be talking about door openers in more detail. And in September, we'll have more exciting Lunch with Haley's coming up, so please be sure to check out our lunchwithhaley.com website for the upcoming educational webinars. All right, let's see. Question that came in, David, if you're using email and phone touches on a prospect, what kind of expectations can we assume before a contact is made? Are there statistics on success rates in this market? I'm going to give the giant answer, it depends. And sorry to be like Joe Marketing Guy 101, but a really effective direct mail campaign, we have seen 20 to 40% responses where we send out a package and follow up, and it can be one step and follow up. Typically in direct mail marketing, if you're doing like a single direct mail piece and hoping for a response, you're looking at 1/4 to 0.5% response rate. When you integrate calls with the other forms of marketing, then we'll be looking at anywhere, we usually look at low end 2, high end 10% of conversion over time. So then the overtime can be measured in months. And then a kind of a related question that came in is, measuring the ROI. How do I know whether or not a campaign works? Well, you look at the conversion rate, how many of those prospects place an order, and then ideally you're measuring it over some period of time, because most likely people aren't suddenly going to give you 100% of their staffing business. So when you get that first job order, you want to say, okay, did we fill it? And then how long will that client stay working with you? Or maybe you want to measure it after 3 months, 6 months, or ideally a year or more. Some companies will look at a lifetime value saying our average client stays with us for 3 years or 5 years. So if this company we're working with is going to spend $10,000 a year with us and they work with us for 5 years, that sale was worth $50,000. So those are a couple of ways to look at response rates and how to measure effectiveness. The next question, when sending a package to a company, who should we target in order to be able to follow up? The best prospect for your business is going to depend on your sales team and the kinds of staffing you sell and how you sell. If you sell strategically, meaning you're selling the value of staffing services, the value of an executive recruiter, the best prospect is a higher level decision maker, department head, general manager, owner if it's a smaller business, and then somebody who can make the decision, yes or no, we use staffing. If mostly you're selling to HR because you're dealing with organizations where the staffing decisions are made in HR, that's fine. That's a tactical buyer. You just want to match the message to that audience. The next question is coming from the IT staffing industry. How do these types of campaigns translate? Great question. And this was our exact conversation earlier today. We had an individual who was swearing direct mail is old school. I would never use direct mail in IT. The analogy I love to use with direct mail and direct marketing in general is think about going to the supermarket and you have a choice. I can get in the express lane or the regular lane. Which lane do you want to get in? Well, clearly you want the express lane. When it comes to marketing today, email is the regular lane. A lot of the social media, like looking at status updates and your news feeds, that's the regular lane. If you look at most executives' direct mail, you're going to find that they get very few pieces of mail per day. And when they get it, usually it's either a bill or it's a postcard. It's not usually a quality piece designed to get their attention. It's not a package, certainly not usually a FedEx. So in IT staffing, direct marketing is tricky. And it's tricky because if you try to be glitzy and clever, the IT manager is going to smell sales pitch and not pay attention. So what you have to do is you have to address their pain points. The fact that hiring IT people kind of sucks, that you can't find talent, that if your project is delayed because you don't have talent, you might lose your budget, you might lose your job. You have to address their real pain points. And if you can figure out the right pain points, now it's a matter of how do I get it in front of somebody. So what I said of FedEx with a letter that says, I'm sending this to by a FedEx because it's urgent. And what's urgent is job vacancies in IT because they're only going to get worse. And so what's urgent about that is the implication to your business of not finding the right talent. A productive IT professional, and there are stats on this, is as much as, and this is a Microsoft guy, 10,000 times more productive than an average IT professional. Do you want average or do you want exceptional? And if we're going to get exceptional, you can't be a reactive hiring manager. So we have to be proactive. And I'm going to show you how we can help you be more proactive. So if I just emailed that to the IT manager, no way they read that message. If I really want to do something clever, I might do a direct mail piece with a video mailer. Now, they're super expensive, but you can actually shoot a video and mail out a video player in a card that you mail to someone. They open it up, they press play, they watch you telling this story. I was showing our team today, we're working on augmented reality. So you could use direct mail and doing something really creative, take your phone, shoot at it, and the phone takes you to a video or a web page that adds a virtual reality or an augmented reality layer to a print piece. Lots of cool stuff that you can do to make old school direct mail fit a high-tech audience. And then with IT, I would integrate it with email and social media follow-up and the telephone. All right, last question that came in. A couple of people who actually arrived late and were hoping that we recorded this. Good news, I'm about to hit the stop recording button. So this will be available on our Lunch with Haley website next week.